and welcome to Unglamorous in the City with Smith Rao. I'm so excited to have you here, and I am so excited to introduce you to my friend, my guest, Floritza Gomez, who works at an investment bank here in New York City. And no big deal, guys, she runs her own business on the side. So Floritza, welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Me too. We've really been looking forward to this, for everyone watching or listening. It's, obviously one of the greatest things about this podcast is I can bring on my friends.
Yes.
Because I have so many amazing friends who are just doing amazing things. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Okay, so, I know we have some questions we want to get to, and I want everyone who's watching, listening to know just how fabulous you are. So let's start with some of the basics first.
Okay.
Tell me a little bit about you, how you balance your full-time career as a corporate events professional at an investment bank, as we mentioned, while also building Floritza's Flavor. And what a fun name. So tell me a little bit more about that and just what you do and how you balance it all.
So I would like to say that I don't know, but more often than not, I definitely try to keep myself at least balanced. I'm in this season now where prioritizing my self-care, prioritizing myself so that I can be able to do all of the things is more important. So definitely, I'm sure for everybody, lots of calendar management, which sometimes is good, sometimes is not. I'm often kind of running around very much back to back, very busy, very preoccupied, but I try to spend as much time as possible figuring out ways so that I don't burn out. So going to the gym, all of these things have nothing to do with what I'm building, but they're the reason why I'm able to do all of what I do. Because I do try to be very intentional about finding pockets of time for myself and for my loved ones. But I've been building my brand now for about 5 years. Wow. Floritza's Flavor is a spice brand. Our tagline is the flavor of equity. That's why there's no S in the background, because instead of it being Floritza's Flavors, which is what most people kind of always allude to, they think that it's, there's these multiple flavors because it's spices. It's more about my flavor, and my flavor is the flavor of equity. We are a brand that wants to make sure that there's access to healthy, affordable nutrition within under-resourced communities. So that is what the flavor is. It's about equity, it's about access, it's about community building. Like I mentioned, it's something that I've been building for 5 years now. I have been working in corporate investment banks for most of my career. So it's funny, most of the time people ask me, again, how do I do everything that I do? Because I am an events professional. So there's a lot of demand and a lot of presence required in that role, but I find a way, right? I think anytime that we do things that we're passionate about, both of the things that I do I'm passionate about, we always kind of find a way to squeeze them in and make sure that we build upon them. And more often than not, when people think about entrepreneurship, they think that you're like waiting for this exit plan, but I'm actually very much in love with both sides. I love my career. I love what I do. I love curating events and experiences for people. And I also love being a founder of something that'll be impactful.
And I love that. And I think it's so many people can relate to that because for all of us that live in New York or even really any big city, right, it's so much of it is, you love what you do. You're passionate, hopefully, about what you do. So you want to kind of do it all. And that is such a tough thing sometimes, juggling everything. To your point, people ask you, how are you doing all this? Like, how are you able to actually get everything done on your to-do list? I don't know if you're old school, you have the to-do list. I do. I do. It doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me. I do too. And checking off something and saying, okay, I did it, we're good, and moving on. But when there's so much going on, but I feel like all of us that thrive in that environment, I can't imagine being any other way.
Yeah, no, I can't. I think it's also a part of the environments that I grew up in. I was born and raised in the Bronx. It's New York, but it's New York adjacent. It's fast, it's upbeat, you have to be witty, you have to be innovative and resourceful. So the duality of all of that, being able to do multiple things, it's also a byproduct of not just growing up in the Bronx, but being the daughter of immigrant parents, we are constantly trying to figure out what's next, right? Because we uphold and own not just our ambitions and our dreams, but the dreams and the ambitions of our family. So there's not a lot of time to sit back and be idle, right? That comes with a lot of benefit, but it also sometimes comes with a little bit of discomfort, because sometimes you're like, I wish that I was just able to be someone that went to work, right? And that's all I did. And not to knock anyone that that's what they do. I believe that everybody has their own path and walk, but that because there's that kind of hustle and that desire and that hunger and that ambition that you're raised with, you often find yourself always thinking about what's next. And your mind is always wired and always thinking about the art of the possible. And I think whether I was idle and just doing one thing or doing multiple things, my mind would be going. So why not leverage that speed and do many things with it? So I think it's just, I'm a product of New York. I'm a product of the Bronx. I'm a product of resilient and ambitious parents. And I'm just kind of living that.
And I love too, like I know you and I have talked a little bit about it, how our cultures come into who we are. Obviously, your company, everything you do on a daily basis. So talk to me a little bit about, your heritage, your culture. You're very proud. I love that. I love that. I am too, from where I'm from. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Oh man, I feel like I think I'm Dominican every day of the week. Spanish was my first language. It was the first thing, one would think I was, born here in the United States, and one would think that I was learning English and that's the first language. And then I struggled with Spanish, but I'm actually more fluent in Spanish than I am English. My mom was very much kind of hard pressed on making sure that I had that as something that I could carry.
Mm-hmm. Smart. That's smart. That's a very smart thing.
It was,
right?
I always tell people, you should be like my mother and put your child in bilingual classes up until 7. I think I was in bilingual up until 7 or 8.
That's great.
All of my courses, all of my curriculum, I was taking it in Spanish. So English was my second language. And I think that what it did was it kind of created that connection to a country that I wasn't born in, but because being Dominican was inherently what we were, that's all we knew. I identify as that. I am full-blown Dominican, to the point where when I launched this brand, it was very important for me to have it be a product that honored and represented Dominican culture. So, our first line of blends are sofrito blends. And sofrito is kind of like a green seasoning. You find it all throughout Latin America.
I do know that, actually. Yeah.
Yes, you find it. So like Haitians will call it epis. Trinidadians will call it green seasoning. Dominicans and Puerto Ricans, we call it sofrito. And
such a cool word too.
It's such a, and making a product that was useful and kind of honored my heritage was important. We've had so many delays because of that honor. I wanted to make sure that we had Dominican oregano because it's not the same, and you and I have talked about that delayed our manufacturing process, but that integrity of culture was very important to me. I'd rather wait to make sure that I'm honoring my culture just as much as I would if I was honoring another culture. I wanted to make sure that I did it right and I did it well, and that I took my time with it. But I just, there's so much of me that is Dominican, but also Dominican immigrant. And I feel like they're the same, but they're different because, for most people that are in the Bronx, they always talk about the Bronx, and then you're Dominican from the Bronx or you're Dominican from Washington Heights. And there's this entire culture around that. That I'm very proud of celebrating and honoring.
And that's the beauty of New York, right? Is that we have the diversity. We have people who are from all over the world, right? And then are proud. We're proud. I'm Indian, obviously. We're proud of where we're from. We're proud of the things, that we grew up with. Yeah. And so I love even just hearing your story and hearing that passion that comes through, not only because you're saying it, but just in everything, right? In your mannerisms, the way you're lighting up talking about it. And I'm sure so many people that are listening and watching can relate to that, because that's something that I think no matter where you're from, right? It doesn't matter if you're from New York or beyond, but we just hear it's something that's so special.
Oh, yeah.
And just bed into the culture, which I love.
Absolutely. I think New York is a combination and a compilation of multiple heritage and cultures and races. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about it, right? That you can feel this sense of belonging, you know, easily. And, you know, when I think of going back to being Dominican, you come to certain nooks and areas in New York and they feel like you are in Dominican Republic. And no one can convince you otherwise, from the language to the smells to the food to the, you know, colloquial way in which people connect, to the way in which they dress. It's all in the subtleties, to the banners and the music that's being played. You genuinely will feel in different areas like you are in that, you know, respective it's almost as if you can identify with each respective community depending on where you are in New York. And I think that's a part that makes it beautiful, and that's one of the things that I've wanted to amplify. Just the fact that people here are coming and they're here, right? So why not make sure that things are accessible to them?
Exactly. And that's the thing. And you don't want to lose that part of you. And I think a lot of us, you know, I'm first generation. I think a lot of us, you know, that's something we want to hold on to, the values, to the customs, to the heritage, but we also want to acclimate, right? So it's kind of a blend of both. And
it is definitely a blend of both.
Yeah, no pun intended, right? For your spices, but it is. It's blending everything and making it all work together. And it does, and it's beautiful, and it does work, but it does take some work to get there and to do all those things.
Definitely.
Yeah.
No, definitely.
Yeah. Now I want to go back to my questions because I had a couple. I know we've kind of are answering some of these organically. We've talked a little bit about what inspired you to start this, but take me a little bit through that journey of, you know, when you decided 5 years ago, okay, I want to do this, or maybe you decided it even before that, but when you decided I want to do this and you moved forward, what was that journey like? You know, for people who are maybe listening or watching this and are wondering, how can I do this? How can I have a Floritza's flavor? What would you say to them?
Oh my goodness. Listen to your inner voice. You and I have talked about this. I am a believer. I'm a woman of faith. And I inherently did not want to do this. There are still days where I don't want to do this. But I constantly do say that I am now doing what's in my purpose. I understand that this is my purpose, and I walk in that direction because I know that this is my purpose. So things open up for me. There's so many pressures that we have in life. You are, you know, in your late 20s, I'm in my late 20s, in my early 30s, figuring out I'm not married, I don't have kids, I don't own a home. What am I doing with my life? All of that is crashing in my mind. And I remember we are pre-COVID, and I'm like, I'm going to go to church and I'm going to just try to figure out how to find a moment of release. And I'm there and I'm in prayer in that moment, and I'm just asking for some type of guidance and understanding as to what it is that I'm supposed to do. And I remember that when I left, there was a friend who sent over an article for this incubator program, and I'll keep this story short, but it ties together.
We have time, don't worry.
For this incubator program that said, if you have an idea or you have a business already established, you can apply. And I'm like, why are you sending me this? I don't have any of that. I don't have an idea. I don't have a business. I'm unemployed.
Right. You're like actually the opposite of that at that moment, but there was a reason it was sent to you.
You know, I'm like, I'm broke. I don't have anything. Yeah. Why are you sending me this? Yeah. And I remember him saying, you have to apply. What's the worst that can happen? They can tell you no. And I remember sitting down, and at that moment, it was not spices. I was still in the food and wellness space, right? I was very active with programs like Whole30 and elimination diet. So me having that holistic kind of wellness mindset was there. Yep. But as I sat there, I was like, well, I need to come up with something to put in this. You had to write almost kind of like an essay. And I said, well, you know what? More often than not, when I try to access products in my community that are, you know, somewhat connected to these wellness programs, I don't find them.
Right.
And that seems like an evident issue. Like there's a problem that under-resourced neighborhoods, the Bronx has been a food apartheid for well over 2 decades, don't have access to all of the innovative cleaning, you know, products that are in the health and wellness industry.
Right.
So I wrote about that. I said, I want to bring those products into, you know, my community. And I guess I'm going to host events because I was doing events. So that was the most logical thing. Yeah. And I get this notification that I was accepted. Thousands of applicants, and I was accepted back to follow your gut and do the things that you think are not going to work, because sometimes they do. I get accepted. I go through the program. They help me fine tune my product. They show me that I need, you know, a minimum viable product, which is where the spices came up. I have, you know, developed my value proposition and my customer segment, and now it's pitch time, and I don't get the award. And now I'm devastated. Yeah. But something in me, maybe like 30 minutes later, one of the people in the incubator is like, well, we have a women's network next that you can reapply for and resubmit and fine tune even more. So I joined that one. Do another 4 months. And after those 4 months, I win the grant.
Look at that. See?
And that was the beginning of it all. That was the confirmation and the validation that this thing that felt almost, you know, coincidental or that felt random wasn't random at all. And that I was actually supposed to be in that incubator program, supposed to come up with my preliminary idea, get rid of my preliminary idea, and go ahead and launch what I actually now have as Floritza's Flavor. And this entire journey has been that way, because when we first started, it was called Flor's Flavor, which is my mother's name, right? And I was honoring my mother. Shout out to my mom. I was honoring my mom, her resilience, the immigrant story that I mentioned to you, the resilience of, you know, communities doing a lot with nothing, right? My mom would always try to still figure out how to, you know, cook good, hearty meals. And we would go to multiple supermarkets for the same reason that I mentioned, and, you know, the lack of access to good quality food. So we would try to find things that were culturally relevant. Yeah. And we would do that by going to multiple places. So the naming it after her as a part of solving this problem just seemed reasonable, right? Here I am, I'm becoming a product, I'm going to be in these communities, and so on and so forth. We'll double down after that and expand on the strategy. And then trademarking happens, and I can't call it that, right? So it's going back to follow your gut, have this resilience, things are going to happen.
Pivot.
You have to be able to pivot quickly and strategically, and you can't allow the emotion of things to get the best of you, right?
Yes. And that's such a big one, I think, because sometimes, like, even people going through unemployment, for instance, right? It is so easy, and I've been there before, right? Where it's just to get, you know, I don't want to say fixated, right? On the negative and just thinking you're never going to get out of this funk. And of course you're trying to stay positive. Everyone tells you to stay positive. Yeah. I think for me, when I was unemployed, people telling me to enjoy the time, I'm like, that's the opposite of what's happening. but I understand the sentiment, right? Or don't get so caught up in the negativity. And I understand that sentiment, because that will bring you down faster than anything else.
And you can't allow yourself, because what tends to happen is that everything happens for a reason. And we seem to always live in this space where we think that we have control over things, and we don't, right? Yep. Of course, we have somewhat of the ability to strategize and, you know, come up with ideas and build a plan and put said plan in place, but that ultimately the outcome is really not in our hands. So we have two choices: either to believe that there's going to be a positive outcome on the other side of this thing that you find daunting, right? Like the trademarking happens, and now we can't be called Flor's Flavor, and I have all of this branding and all of this money that I have spent on legal fees, on marketing, on launching, and somebody is telling me you cannot call it this. But that the beauty in it is that it was always supposed to be called Floritza's Flavor. That the pivot was, well, why don't you just name it after you? Because this is your brand. You are the one that believes in the flavor of equity. You are the one that is upholding to this mission. You are the one that wants to create access within under-resourced communities. And the minute that I thought of that, I was like, had this not happened, had this setback not occurred, I wouldn't have the brand and the business that I now have. And it would not have been presented into the world in the way that it is. So I'm grateful at any given point for the setbacks and for the things that aren't great, for the struggles that I've had, for the delays, because they have actually built me as a founder and as a leader, but also my business. Like, I am the first person that will say, you have to have patience in the process and
trust the process.
Yeah. And trust when there is the moment for you to move forward, but also trust when it's the moment for you to pause. And I've had so many people that will ask me today, well, why aren't you further along in 5 years? Because I'm not supposed to be. But that when I am exactly where I need to be, there's going to be an infrastructure in place that's going to allow this to sustain, and it's going to allow it to be the household name that I've always known that it was intended to be, that I'm not building something that's just like an extracurricular activity, and that big things, impactful things, they take time.
They do. And, and it's also, this journey is part of it. Right? Yeah. Going through the journey, learning these lessons, right? To your point, it's taking you to where the name of the brand, the very name of the brand, right?
Yeah.
That journey has taken you there, but those are the things that I believe you too. I believe in that as well. What's meant to happen will happen. And so it was meant to be the way that it has been.
Absolutely.
I believe that 100%. And, and it's funny, we talk about timelines, right? People will say things and we can talk about anything, right? We can talk about work, we can talk about dating, we can go there, but wherever it is, right? People have timelines, but who is someone else to tell you what your timeline should be for anything of significance in your life, including this?
Yeah. And getting rid of timelines in my life, as it relates to everything, including my business, including my relationships, including my friendships, including me potentially being a parent, everything, getting rid of timelines in my life has been the best thing that has ever happened. I have removed the social pressures around where I'm supposed to be. I think that 5 years ago, when I was about to start this endeavor, my mind was there, right?
Yeah.
This is where I'm at. Look at all of, instead of looking at the things that I had achieved, I was thinking about the things that I hadn't. And I was allowing those pressures to really rule me, versus if there's one thing that building this business has taught me is that we make our own timelines, right? And it's also allowed me to ask myself questions that a lot of people are scared to ask themselves. Do I want the things that, society imposes on us? Do I want them now? Do I actually want them ever, right?
Right. And only you can answer that.
And only I can answer that.
Yep.
And having that kind of inventory and self-audit has been powerful, because it's freeing. I'm free, right? So I get to dictate every day and exist in the gratitude of today is going to bring what today is bringing. And it has allowed me to be present. It has allowed me to be in the joy of my existence. It has allowed me to live a whole life. I feel like I live a very full life. And I'm thankful that I honor that I do because of that freedom.
I love that. And I love what you said, because I think that's so important, right? For people and women, men, whatever, right? Just to hear that it's not like, don't let anyone else dictate your timeline. Yeah. Don't let anyone make you feel bad. Yeah. I even remember when I was younger, getting questions, oh, is she married, or is she doing this, or what's going on? When I was working in TV specifically, like, where is she? She's in North Carolina. Like, just why is anyone dictating what I should do with my life? And I think there are people that obviously have good intentions, and most people have good intentions. I'd like to believe that, but it's also a little bit of a, why are you saying that to me? Why are you asking around, whatever it is, whether it's directly or indirectly? It's kind of the same thing where it's like, why are you, it's my journey and it's my timeline.
Yeah.
And I know there's some questions here I want to get to, and that's probably a good
segue,
yes, to this fun question that we decided. Do you think ambitious women have a harder time establishing healthy relationships in New York City? And this is a broad question, so I'll let you, that's open for interpretation, but do you think, as someone who's doing all these things, really killing it on the work front, right? But do you think that impacts the relationships, whatever that is? And again, I will leave it open-ended on purpose.
I think ambitious people struggle at times to have healthy relationships. I think everybody classifies healthy very differently, right? So my needs and my requirements may be different than yours. But I do think from a general standpoint, people that are ambitious and driven and so fast-paced often find themselves, especially women, right? I'll speak generally for myself and for some that I know, find it very difficult to drop the guard, right? It's almost as if it's difficult to for men to wrap themselves around all of who we are and all of how we exist. And it becomes a challenge, right? Because for most of us, we want equally ambitious men, right? We want a partner that matches our drive, that matches our energy, that matches that partnership mentality. And that comes with two people being on the go, both mentally and literally physically in any aspect, right? In their schedules, in their busyness, in the way that they're shaped. But I do think that because there's this ambition and this drive, there's this idea that, we don't need anything. We have everything figured out, right? And there isn't the ability to kind of see the softness and the need that there is for us to also be taken care of, right? I know that for me, it is often a struggle to release the grip. I am in control in so many other aspects of my life, right? Yeah. My day-to-day, right? At work, the way in which I show up as a leader in that space. I, operate and lead teams, right? I execute large conferences and programs, right? People need me to answer, right? People seek me for guidance and advice. And then I launch a brand and here I am, putting out a product, innovating, leading, again, more teams, strategizing around that, building the sales plan, working with multiple stakeholders in different lines. So at what point am I just Floritza, the vulnerable person that is readily available to be seen, to be valued, to be protected? There are moments where that is difficult, right? Because I think the problem is that if I allow you in, right, fully, then that puts me in a position to then be at risk of getting hurt, right? And the vulnerability, and the risk of getting hurt now is going to trickle and bleed into all of what I have to do because, I joke with my friend all the time, I don't have time to be sad.
Yes.
Right?
I can relate to that, right? I don't have time. Now, I think there's a difference between not making time to grieve or to, reflect on an experience, but in a way this is, I think, what separates people that can handle some of these things and some people that have a little harder time.
Yeah.
You just don't have time to dwell. It's the dwelling. You can't dwell. Processing and dwelling are two different things, but you're right. You don't have time to dwell on the sadness. And I think that is actually what ultimately helps people. And I've said, I'm not a therapist. I don't have any kind of a therapist. This is just my life. This is the unglamorous things in my life.
I am not a therapist.
Yes,
I do
but
not
you're
have
so
the key.
spot on, I think, at least from my unglamorous experiences, that's what it is. I've always been where I would rather be out with people. I'm not someone that wants to be in my apartment by myself. Again, I want to process certainly things, negative experiences that happen in my life, but I don't want to be at home dwelling, and I don't have time to be at home. And I think so many people can relate to that, right? Whether it's your work, it's your family, you're a mother, or you just have a large network of people, whatever the case is, you can't dwell. Right? And it's so hard sometimes, but the fact that you recognize that you just don't have time to be sad and you don't have time to dwell, I think is such a powerful thing.
And I think, and I say this with the understanding that in everything that I show up to do, I show up authentically, right? I don't guard my heart. I don't operate from that angle. I don't believe in let me just be guarded. I don't do that with friendships. I don't do that with relationships. I don't sit from a place of jadedness either, right? Yeah. I think that there's bravery and vulnerability, and I'm a brave person. So therefore, when I meet people, when I interact with them, who they're going to get is the fullness of me, right? You're going to get the fullness of who I am. What I find often is that I don't get the fullness of others, right? People are walking in the world in all aspects, very transactional, very, very surface level, and finding people that are willing to go to the depths when you are already someone that is busy and doesn't have time is difficult, because my mindset is like, okay, I'm here and I have a plan. I know exactly what I want. I know exactly what I'm looking for. What are we doing?
Yeah. How are we getting there? How are we getting from point A to point B?
Right? And I think that a lot of people, there's terminology going around where like, I'm being intentional. Intentional with what, right? Like, I am a very firm believer that you can be intentional about going nowhere, right? Like, where are we driving this car? Are we just going around the block in circles multiple times? And I think that's where I'm no longer at in life. Like, I'm not driving in a vehicle and going around the block aimlessly just for a joyride. Like, I'll get in the car and we will drive together, but I need to have an understanding that this is going towards a direction, right? And I think that is the part where people kind of get lost, because that's what I think of when I think of ambitious women, right? Or when I think about ambitious people, right? There's a groundedness that you have around, ooh.
That's what the water's there for. No, but you're making such a great point, right? Like, that's such a great point.
But there's a groundedness that you have around, you know, I know exactly what I'm doing, where I'm going, and how I want to get there. And the people in my life, they have to be somewhat going in the right direction alongside the same way. And anybody that feels like a stall at any given point, I'm a firm believer people fall off on their own. I have hardly ever had to cut anybody off. I believe that I am inherently protected in that way in my life, right? People that do not belong in my life, that has been how my entire life has shown up. People have, even in ways that have hurt me, right? That I've been like, oh my gosh, like we were just fine like 2 days ago. And when I go back and I take inventory, whether it's weeks, months, or years later, that's when I then get very settled in, oh, it's just you weren't supposed to be here. So I've learned to be more acceptant of those transitions. Me and my sister talk about this all the time. Like, we've gone through so many people, right? And there's beauty in that, right? To know that you've crossed paths with different people, but that we've also gone through so many people, and that the inauthentic people, the people that were not belonging, the people that were users, the people that were there for something that was very
personal gain,
unkind, the people that didn't really have good intentions at heart, right? Yep. And that you were showing up for authentically and organically, those people slide. And I'm okay with that.
Agreed. And you know what they say, there's a reason, a season, or a lifetime, right? Absolutely. When it comes to relationships. And I believe that wholeheartedly, because I think people do come into your lives for a reason. I've seen it personally, right? I'm sure you have too. People sometimes come in, for a period of time, do what, he or she's supposed to do, and then
sometimes it's self-development, right?
It is. And you can hopefully it's a mutually beneficial relationship, right? Whatever that looks like, whether that's a romantic partner, whether that's a friendship, whether that's a colleague, whatever that is, right? If it's a season or a particular period of time. And then there's the people that are just going to be in your corner forever, right? Your lifelong ride or dies. And those are so special.
And I feel like there's now like this trend of like, where are those people? Like, those people don't exist. They're there, right? They're there. I have really, really, really good, solid people in my life that I can call at any point, at any given point, and they're going to be there, right? I think what happens is that we spend a lot of time, a lot of our energy giving to the people that were showing us who they were from the beginning, right? And it goes back to what I said earlier about your business, about anything. Listen to your gut. It does not lie to you, not the first time, not the second time. And sometimes we ignore the voice in us that's saying, I don't think this person, if something doesn't sit right, something doesn't sit well with me, right? We look for the good. I look for the good in people all the time. I'm always like, maybe I'm just reading too much into this thing, and I'm not. And I'm okay with that now. I'm going to be 39 in a few weeks. I'm okay with You were here for a season. Instead of being frustrated around your departure, what am I supposed to learn from your departure, right? What am I supposed to take away? How can I be better next? Because the only person that I actually and generally have control over is me. People are going to be who they are at every given point, but I need to make sure that in every interaction and in every dynamic, I upheld with integrity, with my moral standards at hand, that I showed up in authenticity, that I was who I was, and that I can walk with my head held high saying, I was good to you. And if good to you is not good enough, that is okay. But I don't have to question myself because of your departure.
100%. And as we're sitting here talking, I'm like, God, there's so many things that you're saying that I feel are just like in TV, we call it sound bites, right? I'm like, you're giving me so many good sound bites. But these are just really good things that I think will resonate with people, right? And I always say, I'm doing this podcast. If I can help even one person, right, navigate through something unglamorous or, whatever tough situation is currently going on, like, that's all. Like, I just feel like these conversations are so important because not everyone talks about this stuff. And that's okay too, right? I understand some people are more private. I've always joked I'm an open book. I always have been. But some people are more private. You are too.
I am an open book in certain regards, in certain environments. Yes. I'm like the person that you'll meet. I think it happened when we first met. And I was just telling you my whole life. I don't have those types of hesitations and reservations because I don't live a life that I'm embarrassed of. I'm proud of both my failures and my successes, and the things that I've done, the things that I've experienced, they have inherently made me who I am, right? I always joke there's often times where people will talk about like past relationships and they'll do it from like, a coy place or they're a little bashful. No, I have been in relationships with people that were not deserving of my time, and I have given them all of my time and wasted so much time on people. I'm okay to say that, right? Because I inherently, that time was not wasted, and look at who I am now, right? Like, look at what I've learned from the people that I was not supposed to be with, right? And look at what I've learned from the friendships that didn't work, and look at what I've learned from the failures of, being let go from a job, right? Like, it's made me the excellent person, the excellent, more focused, professional that I am today, because I learned from my failures. And, I'm also one of those people, I take accountability. Like, not everything that happens in my life is everybody else's fault or the fault of the world. Like, there's no like agenda against me, right? There have been things that I have experienced because I have chosen to stay in those environments. There have been things that I, have delayed because I haven't made an inherent choice. So at this age, I'm okay with the choices that I made that I probably shouldn't have done that, but I did it. And I'm also okay with the decisions that I've made that have been great, that have a really good turnout, because my life is full and my life is one that I find beautiful. And I didn't always feel that way. I didn't always feel like I had a full life, but I'm like the most grounded now.
Exactly. And it takes time to get that. Like, that is a journey in itself, right? To accept that. I don't know if it's something with age. I'm a little older than you, right? I'm now in my 40s. And happy early birthday, by the way, too. You said it's in a few weeks. But, it's, there's a self-assurance that's there that wasn't there before. And not that I've never been a person that lacks confidence, but this is me, right? And I know who I am. I know I'm a kind person. I know I'm a good person. I'm very empathetic. I know these qualities, right? And hopefully you see it too, just in general. Hopefully people see it too. But if someone doesn't, that's not a reflection on me. And it's not something I should, like, I used to be a people pleaser.
Oh, I was such a people pleaser, right? An overextender. My insecurities, I was very insecure. But in a weird way, my best friend always says that. She's like, you were one of the most oddly insecure people, because I've been secure, right? Like, I've always known that I can do anything, right? I don't have limitations in my mind around the things that I can do. But specifically when it came to relationships, there was this like devalue that I would give myself, right? It was almost like all of the things that I knew that I could endlessly achieve didn't translate into that side of my life. And I would almost be a shadow of myself in that aspect of my life. And I wouldn't see it. There was like a blinder to it where I was almost kind of like, no, I'm operating fine, and I'm operating, and people around me would be like, why are you tolerating that? Why are you still there? Why are you dealing with that? But I wasn't realizing and seeing that, yeah, it was the product of insecurity, like the self-sacrificing behaviors that I would do, where now I'm still, and that I would think that because of this authentic way in which I am, and this, you know, goodness that I want to show up in the world as, and all of those things. I always say I'm not a nice person always, but I'm a good person, because I'm not nice all the time, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah. And it's deserving, of course.
It's deserving. Right. Nobody's nice all the time. But this goodness that I would give, I thought that, you know, there was like this devalue in it, right? And it's almost as if I thought for a season almost that there was something wrong with being that way. Oh, you should be different. You should be stronger and more, you know, have a more vivacious personality and be more strong-willed. And I would compare myself to other people that were a little bit more boisterous or had just a little bit more like backbone, I would say. And I realized, you know, I didn't need to be anyone but me, and that I do have a backbone, and that I do actually have a very solid and grounded voice, that I am actually very opinionated, and that if I just exist in the confidence of who I am, I can still show up in that goodness and that empathy and that softness and that kindness. I don't have to be anyone other than myself. And I think that has also been very freeing, because now I get to be me, right? I get to be kind. I get to be tender. I get to be soft and warm. I just steward it better.
Yeah.
I show up in that way to the people that deserve it, right? I show up in the full essence of who I am towards those that are worthy of it, right? And that those that are not, you don't get that version of me. But I am not going to dim my light. I'm not dimming my light, and I'm not dimming how I show up in this world because of you, because of how you are choosing to be towards me. No, that if you're choosing to be towards me in a way that isn't deserving of me being my full self, then you're just not deserving of being in my life, period.
And, you know, it's no surprise that I love the show Sex and the City, the name of the podcast. But you're just saying so many things that I think, like, and these are things that I think over the course of all of the seasons, right? And Samantha was a very strong character.
Yep.
But this is what she had. And I was too young to really understand it when I was watching it live. But now that I'm older and I go back and I see, I'm like, that is why that show is so powerful. I think one of the reasons, because it's these lessons that are kind of, you know, they're embedded, of course, through the storylines and through the experiences. But I remember Samantha was always someone that was like, you know, I love me, but I love you, but I love me more, right?
Absolutely.
And it's that same attitude where it's just, you get to that point, and it's that it's beyond self-confidence, you know, it's a certain...
It's self-assurance. It's self-actualization.
Yes.
It's a reminder that you are exactly who you were called to be, right? It's... You know, it's in the same way of, I don't have to tell people my boundaries. I just have to live them. Yeah. I exist in this world being me, right? So I show up every day. I know what I like. I know what I don't like. I don't have to prescribe it to you and tell you, oh, like, you doing that is, you know, disrespecting my boundary. No, I'm showing up as me. I'm a living experience and a living example of my boundary. If I don't like something, I'm going to say it. If I like it, I'm going to express it. If I want it, I'm going to let you know. If I don't want it, you're going to understand it. And that is so natural for us. We just sometimes struggle to tap into that. And I think part of it does come with age, right? I joke with my friend that the older that you get, your estrogen levels drop. So your desire and willingness to care about things also goes out the window. And maybe that's true, right? Something that I joke with her about all the time has some validity. Like, the things that I operate and give energy to at this point in my life have to hold value. And for someone to be there, you have to embrace me in the fullness of who I am. And that I've also learned to honor that I am worthy, that I am smart, that I have a lot to offer, that I have a lot that I bring in family relationships, in friendships, in romantic relationships. And owning that and feeling settled in that is something that I think after I've gotten here, there's no going back. I don't know how to be any other way now.
Exactly. And there's something so wonderful and beautiful about that. And Floritza, I could keep talking to you, and I'm looking at the time and I'm seeing that we kind of got to slowly wrap up here. But I do want to give you the opportunity. I mean, like I said, I think you've just said so many pearls of wisdom throughout this whole thing. And I'm so grateful for you to be
I'm
here.
grateful to be here.
But you have to let everyone who is listening and watching know how they can find your spice. And then I know you have.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I was like, show it, girl. Let's show it off. It's
my
very
Floritza's flavor, which is right here. You can currently find it online at floritzasflavor.com. We are actually in the process of our manufacturing production, so we will be back in stock in 3 weeks. It's all very exciting. And at that point, it will also be in retail stores. So that's also very big. But at the moment, you can definitely place an order at floritzasflavor.com. We have bundles, we have an original blend, a coarse blend, a spicy version. They, not because I made them, but they are very delicious.
Oh, I have no doubt. And also, look how they match her shirt. I know that was planned. I know that is not an accident. Floritza, you have been a delight.
Same.
Yes, thank you. And by the time this actually goes live, it will already be in stores. So
congratulations. It will already be in stores by the time this goes live. So
congratulations.
Thank
amazing.
you.
I'm so proud of you. I'm so honored to know you.
Same.
So excited we had this conversation. We'll have to do a part 2 because I feel like we could keep talking. And again, so many pearls of wisdom. If people want to find you, they can reach out to you via your website. Anything else? Any other way people that you want people to reach you?
You can also go to Floritza's Flavor on Instagram. You can also find me at Simply Floritza on Instagram as well. I'm always there talking about my journey as an entrepreneur, and a bit of a whole bunch of other things. But I'm very happy to be here. I'm happy and very excited for you as well for the podcast, and always looking forward to come back, but also hearing and listening to all of the amazing women that'll be on here.
Thank you. Well, Floritza, again, thank you.
Thank you.
To everyone watching and listening, thank you. And I just want to leave you with this, which is the most unglamorous moments in life are usually where the real story begins. So thank you, everyone. Unglamorous in the City with Smith Oral, my wonderful guest, Floritza. You guys take care. Thanks again.
Bye.